Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the second installment on my attempt to figure out these Phantasm films, which, though I really enjoyed them and I've seen some of them several times through, whether on their own or part of this Christmas episode of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs and Darcy the Mail Girl on Shudder, I still have a hard time figuring out various aspects of these films, no matter which one it is. So for this one, I'm going to recap and try to wrap my head around Phantasm 2 from 1988. The official synopsis from the back of the Blu-ray is as follows. After several years in a mental hospital, Mike escapes and joins forces with pal Reggie to hunt down and destroy the sinister tall man once and for all. Mike's telepathic visions lead them on a journey through devastated small-town America and ultimately to a blood-curdling confrontation with killer chrome death machines, hooded monsters, and the tall man's vision of hell on Earth. Okay, so my notes on this were pretty straightforward, and I feel like I kind of followed it a little bit better than the first one, and honestly, this is the one that I think I've probably seen the most, at least the most times growing up. As, like I mentioned in the previous video, the local Blockbuster locations by me just for some reason never carried the first one, but part 2 was always available on cable, so I was always coming across it. So there are some things that still stood out in this one that didn't quite I didn't really quite understand, and some other questions that I kind of had, or certain things that kind of stood out. So, first one is that Mike was living with Reggie for some reason, and this kind of stood out from the last movie as well. At least that's what it looked like. He says, let's go on this road trip, and Mike goes upstairs to his room, but they're at Reggie's place. So, maybe part of this flashback and dream kind of stuff is that, maybe the ending of the first movie was right and that all of it was a dream, and just somehow the tall man is still existing and coming in, and that his brother was killed and all that. Maybe that's why Mike is technically at Reggie's place, since I think he's only about 13 years old in that first film. But there's nobody living there that we see except for Reggie, and that comes up again in a moment. Second thing was that in that little flashback, as he's reliving that, showing what had happened after he'd kind of been grabbed, after the mirror had been broken, Reggie didn't really seem fazed at all by these little hooded dwarves in the flashback. Just like, oh well, dwarves are here, I may as well try to take them out. So Mike is supposedly cured. He's at this mental hospital, and once he's let out, he's digging up graves to kind of prove that the tall man is taking these bodies, and then he comes across Reggie. So, like in the flashback dream at the beginning, he and Reggie, eventually get to Reggie's house, only to find out that it's blown up by the tall man, just like what had happened in that dream or premonition or whatever it was. But Reggie had a family that's now dead. He mentioned the family when they were heading there, but we never saw them in the first film, which of course the first film takes place several years earlier, so maybe that's one part of it, in that since Mike was away, Reggie has started a family. But I don't know, he mentions it when they're driving there, but they were never mentioned before. We never actually see them, but they're dead. Okay, so a lot of that isn't really making sense to me. What happened at the beginning or what happened at the end of the first film, that's fine, because it kind of just gets us where we need to be for the story in this film, which is Mike is free, Reggie's family is dead, the two of them set out on their little road trip to track down and destroy the tall man. Fine, let's not dig too deep into that. We just get us where we need to go. Let's go get the tall man. So then, of course, we get to what is my favorite part when I was a kid, this whole prepping montage. Prepping montages are great in any 80s movies anyways, but this one, that quad barrel shotgun that Reggie makes, I don't know any kid who didn't just dream of having that one day, or any adult even to these days. It's just really cool scene. So now they're going to go out there, they're prepped, they're on the road trip. We get that spooky, empty world feel that I mentioned in the first one. For the most part at least, very sparse on characters. These pretty much empty towns, all being explained away that the tall man is coming into those areas and basically sucking them dry of these corpses. The mysterious deaths, put them in the little canisters, put them in the other dimension, whatever, gets his little army, moves on to another town. But it still gives me that eerie feeling that maybe there's something else happening. Maybe this is all a dream. Maybe they're in another dimension. Who knows? There's something that isn't quite sitting right with me, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But fine. So along the way, of course, Mike is having these dreams, these little premonitions of sorts to kind of guide them on where they need to go and what to keep a lookout for. They often involve this girl who needs their help, and they eventually track down and are able to help. But, 1 minute things feel relatively linear and are moving along fine, and then the next something really strange is thrown in that kind of sidetracks us. It's still a lot of fun, a lot of violence and gore. They kind of, expanded even those little chrome balls as having other kinds that do more than just drill. We get, good effects, good gore, good action, a bit more from the first one. We also get another character thrown in as well, this gal who Reggie might pick up, who's heading to this town, and she has a place for them to stay. And the strange thing, though, is also that Reggie, despite looking at the timeline of this film, he just lost his family, and already he's really just wanting to get laid. It's like, dude, you just lost your family. How are you so horny after what looks like maybe a week of driving? But hey, that's him. That's kind of his character. He's always looking to get some from somebody, somewhere, it doesn't matter. And that even comes up in the next film, but that'll be held off from my Phantasm 3 video. Anyways, so this girl, they just kind of leave her at the place that they were kind of holed up for a while. And, they have their ultimate showdown with the tall man. We get a lot of cool action and gore and just crazy stuff happening. They're running out of there, and the gal had actually tracked them down, drives up to help them escape. But as they're driving away, she's dead, or like a reanimated dead, as she's kind of playing with her hair and pulls off like a chunk of her scalp. And we get this cliffhanger. Is the gang going to be safe? What are they going to do about this, as that the tall man has evidently survived, I guess. But, like the first one, it feels like a lot of this is left open to interpretation. Like how are they, I don't know. I mean, it's fine to leave it up to that interpretation, but it's just, even though it's a lot of fun, it's just the beginning of it and the ending of it were very confusing to me, but I still loved it. Like I said, lots of gore, lots of action. It's cool. It felt like it had more going on than the first film. But, like I said, even though I enjoyed checking it out, the beginning and the end were still a bit confusing. Speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest little video, and here's a point where you can sound off in the comments since you've stuck around to the end. What are your thoughts on Phantasm 2, especially the beginning and the ending portions? Were you confused about it as much as I was? Did I miss something that maybe explains it more? Or what's your interpretation? And, sound off in the comments. Like, whatever you feel about that. Is this stuff that you just determined from watching the film? Did you read something somewhere online? Was there maybe an interview with Don Coscarelli that kind of explained it a bit more? But just sound off and let me know what you found out. Anyways, that wraps up volume 2 for this. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon to get notification for when I put up part 3, which will be in another week or two. And I will see you in the next one.